Also in D.C. this morning, one of the newest members of Congress, West Virginia Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin. He says every time that he meets with voters, he apologizes. Senator, good morning. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good. All right. A little tongue-in-cheek here, but I want to begin with Congress's approval rating right now. Right now, it is at 9%. And I also want to put this in context a little bit for the people at home. During Watergate, President Nixon was polling at 24%. BP during the Gulf oil spill, polling at 24%. The U.S. adopting communism, running at 11%. So what does Congress have to be thankful for with a 9% approval rating on this day after Thanksgiving?
Chris, I can't even find a 9% that approves of anything we're doing. So I don't know where they're getting that number from.
How do you improve it? That is the big question.
Well,
right now, we're talking about all this dysfunction, all this gridlock. What can potentially get done at this point? It doesn't seem like anything.
Chris, it has to be. We have to come forward, and it has to be about this country, about the next generation. And right now, it's about individual politics and partisan politics. And we're not getting anywhere because we're afraid of who's going to get credit for whatever if we fix something. We've got the blame game down to a science. We can, by the end of every day, we know exactly how to blame somebody else. And it's wrong. It's just not how we did things in West Virginia, where I come from. We try to work together and identify the big problems. And right now, when you think about it, $15 trillion in debt right now, our country is. $17 trillion by next year. We're going to $21 trillion. Break this down in smaller denomination. Every business day, Chris, we go $5 billion more. We have to borrow to run this country.
On Monday, before the super committee announced its failure to reach a deal, you sent a letter to President Obama. You had asked him to intervene. He did not intervene. Do you see this as a massive failure in leadership?
Well, it's you know, first of all, leadership has to lead. They have to be involved, whether it's the president and whether it's the leaders of Congress. We've got to set our mark and what we're going to achieve and our goal. We're not doing that because they're afraid of what's going to be best for the next election of next year, in 2012. It should be about the next generation, Chris, not about the next election. And we're not looking far enough. I don't want to go down in history, as you just mentioned, since Truman. This Congress has done less than any other Congress. I don't want to go down in history as being a generation that's turned over the keys to the next generation with a country in more shape. That's never happened. And I'm going to do all I can to make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah, if that was the Do Nothing Congress, the 80th, you guys are going to have to come up with a whole different name for your Congress at this rate.
Yeah, we'll be backwards.
At this rate. I want to talk to some immediate concerns that are kind of relevant to the super committee's failure right now. For the millions of Americans who are struggling, who are currently unemployed, you've got the temporary payroll tax cut, you've got unemployment benefits all set to expire at the end of this year. Do you see those being extended? Do you support those being extended, first of all?
Well, first of all, those are two very difficult. First of all, unemployment, people are still struggling finding jobs, but there's an awful lot of people that need retraining. I believe in order to get bipartisan buy-in, we've got to make sure that there's a component of education and a component of retraining before people continue to extend unemployment benefits. That way they'll be trained for the jobs of the 21st century. You know, the market's changing. We've got to change with that. That would be, I think, the best way to do it. As far as the payroll tax extension, on that one there, I think the American people are willing to say, listen, we'll sacrifice. We won't take that extension if you'll do meaningful tax reform. We've got to make sure we get our financial house in order. And right now, we can't do that. And there's not fairness. You look at the Occupy group and you look at the Tea Party group, and one's saying you spend too much from the Tea Party. Occupy saying you left 99% of America behind. And Chris, they're both right.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we have to put fairness to the system. I believe that would be a perfect time for us to put all that together and say, listen, we're going to sacrifice the payroll tax extensions if you do meaningful tax reform. That's a beautiful way for us to start getting our house in order. I really believe.
It's a starting point. Senator, thanks for taking the time this morning on this day after Thanksgiving. We appreciate it. Have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.